My name's Jeremy Kamiya. I'm an independent furniture maker, and you're watching A Student's Perspective.
Hi there, and thanks for tuning in to A Student's Perspective, the weekly series that connects students with designers, manufacturers, educators, industry professionals, and design media celebrities to hear their stories on just how they've gotten to where they are now. Through our conversations, we connect the past, present, and future of design to show just how much we can learn from each other to grow towards our fullest potential without prescribed limitations. Think of A Student's Perspective as a weekly design lecture series from the student's point of view. A Student's Perspective is a division of the nonprofit University Hall of Innovation, whose goals are to connect students with the design industry through design challenges and mentorship, and a collaboration with the Marywood University Interior Architecture Program in Scranton, Pennsylvania. All interviews can be found in their video format at www.astudentsperspective.tv. For more information or sponsorship inquiries, please contact University Hall of Innovation at gmail.com.
Hi everyone, my name is Bianca.
And I'm Vanessa, and today we're here with Jeremy Kamiya. How are you doing, Jeremy?
Good. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Of course. Would you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm an independent furniture maker. I work out of my garage. I just call it what it is here in High Point. So that's just a detached garage off of our house, and that's where I aim to make special objects.
Yeah. So how did your journey actually start, education-wise, and then maybe where it led up to where you are now?
Sure. My education, just starting at college, was in North Carolina at Appalachian State. I just had to pick a major. You got to go to college,
Right.
go to college, and I have to pick a major.
Yeah.
I picked a major. It was photography because that was a creative outlet for me. I just kind of thought, all right, let's do that.
Right.
And it's something that I use still, but I took a different, kind of a adjacent path. After I graduated, I got into graphic design, which I enjoy, and then again, that's a creative outlet. About maybe 7 years ago, my wife and I, she's from Indonesia, and we Bali, and we thought that maybe we should try and connect the two by importing furniture from Indonesia to our small Durham, North Carolina showroom at the time. So that was my first entrance into furniture. Was just, wow, let's make a business and import furniture and fly back and forth to Bali.
Yeah.
So we really just dove into it, and it was interesting. The furniture we brought back, I thought it was beautiful, and the people that came into the showroom, they would say, "This is really beautiful. Did you make it?" After hearing that multiple times, I got tired of saying, "No, I don't make it," and I was like, "Well, I'm just going to start making this stuff."
Yeah.
So I spoke with my wife. Instead of putting our money back into bringing more furniture in, I would invest that in tools. So I got some tools. I started breaking apart our inventory, basically, because it was wood, and I tore apart some tables to make something different, just to kind of learn and understand the process, or begin to understand, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the short story, or the medium long story.
Yeah. So you mentioned that did you take a few adventures to Bali to experience?
Well, only family trips.
Okay.
Right. Our kids, we have kids. Their grandparents live there. They've got to see each other.
Right, of course.
As much as possible.
Yeah.
So it was just trips.
Yeah.
Family trips.
That culture, though, I'm sure has affected your outlook on design in some way or another, and experiencing here and there, and the different needs of lifestyles.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious to know.
I think you're giving me more credit than I deserve.
No.
All of our, all experiences we draw from.
Right.
But I'm not making any conscious decisions on the furniture that I design today. I don't think, based on any, based on a Bali trip or that culture necessarily.
Yeah.
With me, I'm really just exploring the creative process, I guess, for myself. I don't know exactly where I draw inspiration from specifically. I guess I could say that I try not to look at too much other design, because I don't want to be too influenced by
one way or another.
Right. What I really want to try to do is create something that's original, at least to me.
Sure.
So if I haven't seen it and I design it and I like it, then I can say, well, that's original to me. Even if the next year I see something just like it, I won't be completely bummed out about it. I'll just be like, well, I got there my way, And I feel good about that.
Yeah.
That's kind of my process a little bit, or that kind of describes how I like to think about designing furniture.
Yeah, that definitely aligns with your quote of unburdened by historical references.
I love that quote.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not my quote.
No, that's okay.
Which is better, because someone said it about me and they nailed it, because it's a great way of saying, it's the most sophisticated way of saying he's winging it. That I've ever heard, and it's the truth. We're all winging it. I'm definitely winging it. I don't have a formal background in woodworking or anything. I just thought I could do it, and I was comfortable with it. And I don't put a lot of pressure on me I don't put a whole lot of pressure on me at all. In fact, I look at it as it's just wood.
Yeah.
You cut it, you put it together.
Yeah.
It's as simple as possible.
Right.
And then I also make a ton of mistakes every day, in the workshop and everywhere else. It's not fun to make those mistakes, but if you make the mistake and then you fix it, and then you can do that. You can do that with work.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That comes with originality for sure.
Yeah.
All of those mistakes. It's like no one else did it, so how would you know how to do it other than to mess up and learn?
Yeah, or even when you know,
right.
you just still mess up.
Right.
You can know what to do and not do it.
That's inevitable. Even as a student, when we did our furniture studio, we had those elements where it was trial and error. How is this really going to work? What do I have to manipulate in order for this aspect to kind of fulfill this requirement that I need?
Right.
So I appreciate what you said about not applying that pressure to yourself, because as a student myself, and like I told you before, I was anxious all the time.
Yeah.
I kind of put this intense pressure on myself, I can't mess up, because if I mess up, then my project won't be fulfilled in my internal timeline kind of thing. So I appreciate that in the sense of keep trying and keep reiterating these things until you get it right.
Yes, and you should know, students, people like you two should not. You're here. You're connecting with the industry. You're not doing the traditional college thing.
Yeah.
You care. So, I can tell you'll just take that pressure off yourself. You guys are doing way more than other people are, and you're doing more at your age than I was. I promise you that.
We appreciate that honesty too. Of this is there is a specific path that we tend to fall onto. I mean, you even mentioned it with I had to find something to do, so I started with photography. And then it took. That started an entirely new journey, but I think it's so important for us to even point out and credit you with, you followed creativity no matter what. You knew you wanted to be creative one way or another, and I feel like you kept following paths of that passion, and I think that's why you are so successful in what you do now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. I think that creativity, I think, is just a shadow or a mark or a fingerprint of the fact that we are created.
Yeah.
And if we're created, of course we're going to want to pursue creativity.
Right,
There's something ingrained in all humans, I think, that enjoy and really take deep pleasure in creativity. And that can take many forms. It could be a mom cooking, being creative in the kitchen, or
Absolutely.
Take your pick, fill in the blank, however you'd like.
Yeah. Yesterday we had an interview with Antonio, and he mentioned taking all of these different pivots in your lifeline, kind of you started with photography and then you kind of pivoted towards graphic design. So taking these small different deviations off of your main path, but lead you to like this all-time, I guess, better path in the end because it fulfills that desire.
Just keep walking. And door, one door will lead to another, and you never know where it will land or where it will lead. But you got to get up and walk.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit, we touched on it, but not quite. So the process of this creativity, we are really curious about your creative process because, like you said, it's very original.
Yes.
And there's, you mentioned no nails, no screws,
no
stains.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to hear
what
more
does that
about.
look like?
Okay. So there's a couple of questions there. The no nails, no screws, no stains. That my aim is to create something special, and I think in thinking about creating something special, I wanted to come up with something that would be remembered because to be remembered for something, and out of all the furniture designers that I admire, I don't know many that take that tact because I can't be the best furniture designer because I'm not. There's a lot of furniture designers, and I can't be the best craftsman, but I can be maybe known for making special pieces. So the no nails, no screws, no stains thing is it's kind of a nice baseline or a nice platform for me to start, a nice starting point for me to make something special. It's a challenge. Not many people do it. It's hard to do. It's a dumb idea if you want to make money or scale, really, but it's an artistic approach, and it's a way for me to make a name, I guess, for myself or my brand that way. So that's why I do it. I also, it's really enjoyable too. To do it, it's fun. The pieces go together like a puzzle. You can pull a pin out, the leg comes off. I do that for the reason of fun as well. There's also, there's reasons. There's other reasons, commercial reasons. You can flat pack it. It's less of an impact on the environment, etc., etc. But those are just consequences of me pursuing fun.
Right. I think that's awesome.
And I think the other part of the question, at least the way that I was interpreting it, is how do you design? Like, how do you sit down and design?
Yeah.
What I like to do is start with some form of limitation or I guess, some limitations like dimensions, for example. It's nice for me to know that a client wants 60 wide, 30 high, 16 deep. Then I can draw a box to that, so that those dimensions. And then I can see, at least on a 2D front version, 2D, what would look good or feel balanced proportionally in that space. And that's where I start. And then I will draw the side. And then I can start imagining it from the front and the side and the top. And because each side, one side looks good from the front, the front may look good, and then I've got to focus on the side view, and then it'll change what happens in the front usually, so that it's all cohesive. But it's just 2D at first, and if I need to model in 3D, then I will. I'm not very good at it, but it helps me. It helps me get an idea. I'm not as good as other people. I'm learning.
I mean, everybody is.
Yeah. Everyone's always learning. Right.
But it does help me, and I'll do it if a client needs to see a rendering, right? Like before they say, "Yeah, we're going to do it." Then I'll give a rendering. But I don't I don't prototype necessarily. It's more like jazz for me, and I'm not suggesting that this is the right way to do it. It's just the way I do it. Once I get an idea and I feel good about how I think it's going to look, then I just go for it. I'm not necessarily modeling with my hands or creating a smaller scale version. I just am going for it. And then I'll learn, I'll see something else in the process as I'm going that'll usually change the direction of the design too. I will say this, I'm never handcuffed to a design idea so much that I don't allow myself the flexibility to capture a good idea, like an impromptu, whimsical idea. that comes.
It's interesting because when I'm envisioning your pieces as if they are a puzzle in the way that you said, and it's so strange and admirable to see it as you're creating the puzzle. We never look at it as we're creating the puzzle, we're putting the pieces together, but you are very literally creating the actual puzzle before it can be put together or taken apart. Yeah, and that's such a beautiful method to use.
It's, again, I think it's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do feel like, though, I'm not building a table, I'm building 4 legs and a table, and a tabletop and maybe a drawer. It does feel like I'm building, several small things, and then they come together at the end sometimes.
Yeah.
So when you're piecing these like individual pieces together, I know the joinery and like those pegged sort of elements are super important. Is there one that you prefer, or do they vary piece to piece?
Well, no, I imagine that they vary piece to piece. And as far as preference goes, it kind of depends on how you look at it. Are you looking at it aesthetically? Because sometimes the aesthetically more pleasant approach takes more time.
Of course.
So, it's hard to say that I prefer one way or the other, because sometimes maybe the client doesn't have enough room for you to spend a whole lot of time.
Right.
So you just do what, you try to make the best decision possible.
Yeah.
But I guess to be more direct about answering your question, I prefer something that's complex, that fits together nice, and that's hard to do. It's dumb because it's not scalable, but I think it protects my name a bit, because it's hard to reproduce, or it's hard to knock off, I guess.
Yeah.
Because who would want to do that? Who would want to do
really
that?
Do what I'm doing.
Who would want to do this dumb thing?
Yeah.
But that was important to me actually earlier on too, because the way as I understand it, there's really no copyright in furniture. I mean, there just really isn't.
Yeah.
So I wanted to. So at the end of the day, maybe, the value is in the signature, or the signature. So being difficult and doing something complex, putting something together that's complex, I felt was a way to build the value of my signature.
Yeah. And it also really ties back into having those special elements, like those special pieces that you build. They take time for you to build, but they're also special for people that are interacting with them or purchasing them. And I really like that element of design where, yes, like furniture you were able to like copy other people's work, but that sense of like hand craftsmanship and like intent, no one could copy your intent behind creating a special piece and your analytical thinking behind it.
Well, thanks. That's a flattering thing to hear. I don't know that that's true, but I accept the compliment.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now for the process of finishing them, do you have like a certain like glaze that you put on top, or now when I'm thinking of no stain, I'm thinking of like a very raw and like I guess beneficial most use of the material itself.
Okay. So my finishing process is very simple. It's just oil and wax.
Okay.
I do it that way because it's simple. I do it because it's simple. It's easy to maintain. It's easy for me to do. Just serendipitously, it's environmentally friendly.
Okay.
The products that I use, there's like zero VOC. The same products that are used by like the British Museum and other places that archiving and protecting furniture and art. But I honestly just chose it because it's easy and beautiful, and so I'm not putting any tint onto the wood. I like that because it just emphasizes what I think is the inherent beauty in the wood. I think that's an honest approach for me, and I really like that. Sorry, I can't remember where else I was
No,
going.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think for us, it's really important to see that and appreciate that, because we briefly mentioned it, but we have a lot of experimenting to do with one single material in our education.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they'll start us in very elementary levels of our design process.
Mhm.
They'll start us with one material. You
Okay.
cannot use any other material. You have to challenge that material and see what it can do.
That's cool.
You
Right.
bend it, you can rip it apart, you can put multiple together to create a different experience, you can play with shadow and light, but you can't change the material. So it's so important for us to see, like, you're not allowed to paint it. You have to, like, use it for what it is.
Right.
And I think that your design shows, like, use that material for what it is, show the beauty of that material, don't try to cover it in any way.
Yeah, that sounds like an assignment I would give if I were a professor.
Right,
But
yeah.
I wouldn't have thought it out so well. But I completely like it.
Yeah.
It's nice to study one material and understand it to the best of your ability.
Right.
And then add to it. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing by
Right.
accident.
Exactly. By accident. But I love that you're saying by accident, because it's so honest. Like, we have to understand as students that success is not so linear and it's not so set out for us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You are experiencing, and when I say success, I don't mean financially or one specific route. I mean,
Good.
like, because success comes with happiness most of the time. And, am I happy with what I'm doing? Am I satisfied with this work that I'm making? And that's what drives us. Not so much the money as much as it is that
Right.
drive. Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely
Yeah.
true. And people that, may look successful financially or otherwise.
Yeah.
It's not always what it looks like.
Right. Yeah, and I think that your success is sort of radiant for us, because we're seeing that you've succeeded in this originality, and it seems like that was a huge goal for you. So to be able to have that and to elaborate on it every single day is really wonderful.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your honesty in it. Like, I found this by accident,
Right.
or I know, you keep saying, I know I'm not going to be the best, but I'm still designing for me. I really appreciate that honesty as a student looking up to you right now. You kind of have opened a new path for me to design for myself in a new perspective.
Right.
Well, I've learned over, I guess, maybe 5 or 6 years to be tempered in as many things as I can. I do want recognition, and I want to,
Of course.
I want to be known. Right? I want a good reputation, but it's better to not worry. It's just better not to worry about that stuff. So it takes a while, but and it really is important to know. And this should just be reiterated every day, that what you see isn't how it is. On social media, on a podcast, on whatever else. Even with other people and your friends, you never know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're mentioning this recognition, and that, it's not a focus necessarily that you're worrying about, but you've still accomplished it. So you still you've acquired a Pinnacle Awards this past year, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, sure. And I should say, I won't success. I won't an award,
I think
but
we
I've
all
got
do,
to.
right.
But in order for me to be balanced in myself, I've got to tell myself, that's not the most important thing. Don't
Right.
worry about it.
Right.
And it isn't the most. I got to remind myself that it's not the most important thing. But whenever those moments happen, I do. I'm grateful for them, and I celebrate them.
Yeah.
So yes, you mentioned the Pinnacle Awards. I was up against some very strong talent in the maker category, and I was fortunate enough that the judges went my way. These contests are subjective.
Right.
Sometimes, most of the times, what I think is the best piece isn't what
Right.
ends up getting the glory. So, but anyway, this last award ceremony, I was fortunate to, accept a nice piece of glass, heavy piece of glass, and I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And what did that piece look like? What do you want to describe a little
Sure.
bit?
Well, It's titled Shelf of Drawers. It's a walnut piece with brass accents, and you have to imagine kind of an entry piece with, like, I'll try and paint a picture. Let's say it is 50 wide, 16 deep, 36 high.
Okay.
A surface on the top, and then there's maybe a rod, and then a drawer. There's on this side, then a drawer on this side, drawer on this side, drawer on this side. So they're staggered, so that whenever on the top of the drawers you can put books.
Okay. Oh yes.
Yeah.
I know which piece.
Yeah, and well, that's it. So sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I painted that picture perfectly. I'm sure.
No, I think that we can include pictures too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Cut to film.
Yeah.
Cut to film. But to see that, there's beauty in simplicity of a silhouette, but complexity of the skeleton, I feel like you can see a lot in many of your pieces.
Yeah.
And that, like, just the way that you were explaining it, you explained the silhouette, but the complexity of the actual skeleton and what it takes to create that piece is where the beauty and complexity lies. Yeah.
Absolutely. I saw that piece. We are doing a little background on the pieces that you created, and I saw that and I thought it was so interesting to have. It really was interesting because it was something I've never seen before, but also it leaves room for the user to use that space as they need. So the drawer versus that sense of void where what could go here, what do I need, and then you personalize it to yourself. I like a lot in my sense of design interests, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'd second that notion. It is nice to leave some versatility for the end user, the client, your friend, to change it up, to use it in different ways. It'd be nice to see a vase here, or books here, or however you want to use it. I like that, especially whenever I can get more nature involved. I'll probably moving forward. I'd like to incorporate a little more nature, but you asked me to explain what I'm talking about, I can't. So, maybe that sentence went absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
The idea of letting someone who's going to own the piece have room to explore it and make it their own in a way, I think is neat. It's neat to think about and incorporate into the design process.
Yeah, and it encourages us to interact with our environment a little bit. So I feel like our environment outside of the home is consistently changing. So sometimes it is a little bit reassuring to come back to the same pieces that we can adapt to the environment that we need. Yeah, so it's really interesting. How do you think of ways to change objects without actually changing them yourself? I feel like you can adapt that piece so much, and especially the record playing piece. That one specifically I think is really interesting because you can interact with it very literally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm looking for something that's kind of, I want to do something that's fun. I want to design something that's fun. I want to make something that's fun. I also, a part of the fun is incorporating a surprise element, I guess.
Right.
That's not a trademark of mine necessarily, but it's definitely part of what I enjoy when I make it. So if I see an opportunity for fun or for someone to discover something and remember the moment, then I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. I think remembering that moment is important too. We create so much and we look at other people's designs and we find inspiration in them, but I think when you remember something, it's often very unique and oh wow, I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, it's hard to do. I know people that do it much better than me, but it's hard to do.
That's okay though. Yeah. That's not I feel like we don't have to strive to be necessarily the best. I think we just have to strive to be whatever the best of ourselves is.
Yeah.
And that's pretty clear in your work that you're constantly striving for that goal.
Yeah. I 100% agree.
Yeah, and it is really difficult. I mean, when we're surrounded by our peers in studio, we often see that although our projects are very different because it's a display of ourselves, they do have quite a few parallels, and finding uniqueness in those parallels can be very difficult.
Yeah.
But when you you go into something with the intent of making it your own and of trying to, I guess, express it with the same language but in a different way, it becomes the same original piece but so unique to your own person that it's not the same piece anymore.
Absolutely. And I feel like that goes for the record piece as well. We were speaking about that a little bit yesterday as well, where I was like, this is interesting, like removing that bar every time you want to grab a record, and Bianca had explained to me that it's an interactive piece, that playing a record is like this slow form kind of an art of, how would you describe it? Like,
so like when I listen to my records, I often it's like 30 minutes and then you have to change the record. You're constantly interacting with it as opposed to plugging into your headphones and your phone's doing the work for you.
Yep.
You're consciously saying, okay, I'm listening to this music and I'm interacting with the music.
You're hitting on something. I think what you're hitting on, to me anyway, is there's a bit of ceremony involved.
Right. Yes.
Absolutely.
And I like capturing those moments because I'm not really one for ceremony in general, but I do like small ceremony, the intent and purpose for like maybe a tea ceremony or washing your hands or whatever it is that you do and do it with intent.
Right.
So playing a record is exactly one of those things. Right, you've got to go. It takes time to pull it out. It takes time. You've got to be careful with it and put it, make sure not to scratch it.
Yeah.
The album, that is. So those are moments to make memorable, I think.
Yeah. And it's the same as like that tea process of it almost becomes meditative.
You're right. Yeah. Also, something simple like maybe having an entry piece that has a little dish in it, built into it. Right. And as simple as the ceremony of coming home and unloading, the burdens of your day, pocket, in the pocket, and then going to the house or whatever. I think that's just a special. I think it's just a romantic idea, one, and also is something that you could incorporate.
Yeah.
It's like making your bed.
Yeah. I know every good habits book starts with make your bed in the morning, and then it's like it's the same thing of that meditative process and that like relinquishing of a piece of your day so that it becomes habitual, yes, but intentional as you said. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And we so for our furniture studio, we have a project, a plywood project. You take a piece of plywood and you chop it up to make a piece of furniture out of that.
Yeah, cool.
So a lot of the things that you're saying with the intent behind these projects, I almost feel like a lot of us wanted that for our project. Yeah. So to see that you are actually accomplishing this is so interesting for us because you can actually see it happening. And with the plywood project, there was no stain, there was no paint. It was simply the plywood and how do we challenge this.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So
my piece was very similar, intended upon that like special piece that people could personalize it. So it was a series of bookshelves that were able to be manipulated in different orientations depending on which location you put it in.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that intent almost and was like, I really enjoy the thought of having this process that people could interact with and like personalize it to their needs. So I wish I was able to like further develop it. I mean, I can't do it on my personal time now. I guess it's taking that first step to.
Well, sure. Well, the seed's planted, right? I mean, it could be 10 years and you revisit that idea again. It could be perfect in 10 years, or you can go back home next week and play around with it. Some ideas just come out of nowhere and they just sit around for a while.
Yeah.
So,
it's important for us to see that. Yeah, no pressure. I love that you keep saying no pressure because at the end of the day,
relaxes me.
Yeah, that's like the beauty of design though. You can, put something on the back burner for a moment so that you can experience a little bit more, learn a little bit more, and then develop it further. And it's okay to do that. You don't have to be constantly spitting out ideas that have to be completed right away.
Yeah, and you probably had good ideas where you can identify this is a good idea, but it's only half it's like as half baked or 90% there, and just wait. It's like, well, we're going to just have to wait until the rest of it comes in.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sitting on ideas like that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if they happen.
We're excited to see if they do, just because it's interesting work. Yeah.
So we mentioned a lot of there's certain types of intentions behind design and certain types of I'm trying to think of a better word. I guess craft that goes into it.
Sure.
What are your takes on that and like your design processes involving craft?
Yeah. I mean, so craft for me is it's not the first thing I think about, and I don't consider myself necessarily a crafts person. Mm-hmm. Clearly, I use tools and I put wood together, so I'm a crafts person, but it's really almost, it's just what's necessary so that the piece stays together and then it's still there to look at.
Right.
I think that there's a disconnect. The word craft is interesting to me. I think there's just a disconnect between what that means, because in certain perspectives, craft is as honored as it should be, and then in other angles, is craft a scrapbooking, and I'm nothing against scrapbooking, but just to identify the broad. There's this very broad range in the word craft or craftsmanship. I would like to. I think there's a disconnect between the design world. Maybe I don't know exactly how to explain it. I'll just say like the high-end New York design world and craftsmanship, or people who are craftspeople or makers or furniture makers or builders. I wish that I just see. Here's what I see. I see people who are excellent craftspeople and designer makers, excellent designer makers who build awesome furniture, and then I look at their price and I just wish that it were higher, because I want it, I want mine to be higher, frankly. And is craft, just a chair, and then you go to a craft show, is it furniture next to wooden spoons and cutting boards and birdhouse? It's been hard for me to find where I fit into the crafts world and the design world.
Right.
So I'd like to see that bridge kind of get crossed, or there's a disconnect, and it's hard for me to articulate. And also with interior designers, I know many interior designers that are well acknowledged that don't know the famous craft artists like the Nakashimas and Maloofs, and these are people that they're so famous that I know them.
Right.
I mean, and I don't know anybody because I'm winging it.
Yeah.
But these a lot of interior designers aren't connected with these people, and that's not to say that that aren't out there. Maybe it might just be regional, and it might just be the people I know. Maybe, but I wonder if there's anything that we can do about that in the future. And I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just saying, why doesn't everyone, if I know about these names or these great modern day designer makers, why doesn't everyone know?
Right.
So I'd like to see everyone know.
Yeah.
New York know, right? I want New York know.
Yeah.
I think that there's such a broad variety in the word craft. Like you mentioned, scrapbooking in relation to full-scale, like, craftsmanship of pieces of, like, furniture, or larger scale, like, buildings, things like that. We were talking about this yesterday about, yesterday, we were actually sitting down, and I was just talking about how I wish that there was more intent behind creation. I feel like I feel like now in our generation we're kind of like relying on the like factory produced products instead of like having this sense of craftsmanship and becoming an artisan and learning all of these different types of talents. So I feel like maybe our generation might be the bridge gappers.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Do that.
I'm gonna try my best and like figure something out.
The best design that I see, broadly speaking, the best design comes from smaller independent studios that are more nimble, they're more daring, they're not thinking about necessarily price points or value engineering or production, supply chains. They're just they got a pile of wood or whatever they work with, and they're making something that hasn't existed before, and it looks good. It's the best looking stuff. So hopefully this is more of like, the beginning. This is maybe not the most appropriate analogy, but back in the day, the beer aisle in the grocery store was just a few, or was all the big guys. But then, maybe 20 years ago, a small craft beer came in, and now, it's the microbrews, and all, so now it's all over the place. These specialty, just think of it as a product that there are certain people that are really putting their heart into creating something that hasn't existed before. It just happens to be the beer aisle. But it's, maybe I should pick a better metaphor, but that one just seems to work for me.
Yeah. Universal.
So hopefully, we're the, this is the beginning of the big microbrew beer aisle section.
Yeah, and I think being the designers that have the opportunity to be hands-on as well, to actually create our own pieces and put forth that effort to see it happen, I think that is going to be a really beautiful process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and
thanks.
You can help change things.
We hope so.
Sure.
That's the goal.
Yeah. It's a good goal.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So, as student designers, we look up to you guys quite a bit, and we ask you if you could go back in time to your student self and give them a piece of advice, where you're standing now, what would that piece of advice be?
Okay. Well, I mean, that's obviously a good question, and it deserves a deep answer. I don't have a deep answer, I don't think.
Okay,
We'll just see what happens.
Sure.
If I could change anything, or if I could do something differently, I think that I would like to talk to my younger self and just say, take this time a little more seriously, like you guys are.
Okay.
Again, I'm really proud, I guess is the word, of what you guys are doing, your other classmates, just getting out and showing an interest. You're going, as long as you keep actively pursuing something, you'll make it in time. I mean, you'll find, I believe you'll find a life that fits you and that you really enjoy and are grateful for. So you're not wasting time, and I probably wasted a little time.
Okay.
When I was younger.
Sure.
So I would like to not waste so much time.
Yeah. But that wasted time was like a building block, kind of, to create who you are today.
Well, thanks for making me feel.
It's my job.
I definitely think though that there's no, I can't call it wasted time, but I definitely think it's learning time. And I think that if that quote unquote wasted time is learning yourself, that still counts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely think, but I think that taking things a little bit more seriously throughout that process of learning yourself is super important for us to see and understand. Yeah. So we appreciate that honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. And growing up right now, I've been kind of like looking back on my past and thinking I wish I didn't waste so much time. But in that time, I was happy with what I was doing. So just because now I didn't accomplish maybe something that I thought I would have doesn't mean I wasted my time. It was just me experiencing something else.
Right. And, to add on to that, maybe there are times whenever you're just not ready. Like you can't force it.
Yeah. Totally.
But I mean, I can look back and easily say, Jeremy, you wasted a
All
lot.
right, okay.
Yeah. But it's like there's moments where
It's okay.
like,
I can sleep at night, and I'm okay. I can deal with it.
But like there's moments where like you realize, okay, like I am ready to jump in the deep end. It's going to be a little uncomfortable for a minute, but I'm ready to do that.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
So
you should be able to say that.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
yeah, thank
Thank you
you.
for your
Yeah, of
advice
course.
and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us today and for all of your wonderful advice. We really appreciate you. If you enjoyed this conversation, give it a like, comment, and share it.
And tune in next week as the conversation continues from a student's perspective.
We hope you liked this discussion with the design industry from a student's perspective. Please like, share, and comment, and stay tuned for more inspiring conversations to come.